Yo, 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 what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Win-Win Effect Show presented by WINJECT Studios. I'm your host, Chris Ross. Today's a very special day, just like any other special day that ends in Y, but we're talking to Mike C-Roc, most people want to call him, author of Rocket Fuel, What Are You Made Of podcast, show, different types of things we have going on here. But man, I'm just really excited about today's episode. It's going to be fun. Welcome to the show, man.
What's up, Chris? Thanks for having me, man. Start every show I go on with gratitude. I just want to make sure that I express that to you and everybody that shows up to listen or watches a replay. Means the world to me that I have an opportunity to just share what my thoughts are. So thank you.
Man, you're always welcome, man. It's one of those things. It's been a long time coming. We've known each other for forever, it seems. And I came onto your show. Now we're finally reconnecting and getting things, popping off with, going into the very first part of the new year and the last little quarter of this fiscal year. It's going to be really fun, but really excited to have you on. I always start every show the very similar, how you do your show, just one question, very simple. If you had to introduce yourself to someone, maybe it could be one of your events, you go on your mortgage side, it could be you stepping into this type of space with content creators and all the things that you do. How do you introduce yourself to people?
Yeah, I mean, I just tell people, look, I do a lot of things. And when a lot of people say that, but I really mean it. When people hear what I'm into right now, like
it's actually facts.
Yeah, it's facts. So I need to say that I factually am into a really lot of things, but I have a mission that I'm living, man. And that's all people are unstoppable to living the life of their dreams. And I filter everything through that mission, whether it's my jobs, my hobbies, my family, the things that I focus my attention on. Everything has to do with how can I get people to understand that they're unstoppable to living the life of their dreams and then live it out. And of course, in order to do that, I have to do it myself. Right. So that holds me accountable. Maybe, Chris, that might be the reason in general that I just discovered this mission is because I don't want to be stopped. And the only way to keep myself on that track is to make sure that I understand that people are watching me at all times. Mm-hmm. And so I'm in tech. I have a mortgage group that I run. I've done that for years. And then, podcasting, writing a second book after my best-selling book, Rocket Fuel. And also we have a podcast agency that we were just talking about, booking people on great shows.
Right. It's about getting people's messages out there in a different type of way. And that's one thing I do love about your show. You don't spend too much time talking about promotions. You're asking really impactful questions of what are you made of? Because every person ticks differently, and how the world sees you isn't how you're trying to present yourself sometimes. Do you find that going into this type of space of interviewing a laundry list of guests that you have come onto your show, making it difficult for them to have an understanding? It's not what you say, it's what they hear.
Yeah, 100%. Like when I started the show, I was in a journey of mentorship, right? And I was hanging around some super accomplished people, and I started to realize that the journey that they got there, they didn't just appear there, and it wasn't easy for them. And it was kind of an eye-opening thing for me because I'm like, man, it seemed like they just had it going their way, and everything that they did, they touched, turned to gold. And I started to realize that that's not the case. There's ingredients that goes into making people. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to expose that to the world, and that's why I had the show. But when they come on the show, I try to get the conversation. No, I don't try shit. I get the conversation started with the question, what are you made of? Because it really requires them to think. Mm-hmm. They can't pretend, because if they pretend, I'm going to dig deeper on the question or the answer that they give to that question. And, I've had people cry on the show. I've had people say, man, I never shared this with anybody before. I've never been asked. I try to do that because too many times I meet people in person that I've known or watched or admired, and they're not really that person. Mm-hmm. And so that's another reason that I love it. So yeah, 100%, man.
I find that very similar if say for instance, we know some pretty predominant people, right? And they go into a lot of shows, but even when I have them come onto my show, I'm asking different questions because I'm going with a conversation. and I don't want to get to the Sunday school answers, right? That's what I call them.
Yeah,
I want to get to the core and the root and the nucleus of what makes someone tick and why they do things the way they do them. And sometimes on how they're presenting themselves, it's not who they are when the lights turn off. So I'm like, okay, something is not, there's a huge disconnect here. I mean, I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, and they were talking about how well they are being able to talk about all the things they have going on, but not really talk about the things that make them vulnerable. And I think that where the world is shifting right now, people are being a little bit more open to talk about things that they're not used to talking about on a, I guess, public forum. Maybe it could be podcasting, live streaming, on however they want to present themselves. But it's not about just, trying to present yourself a certain way. It's like, who are you when no one gave a shit about you? Who are you then? And how or well are you being able to articulate that message over and polarizing that out through people? And that's what I love about, obviously, your book. I haven't even read your book, but I already know what it's about. It's like, what do you have in that tank? Like, what's your competitive advantage, pretty much? Is that pretty much the gist of it?
Yeah. And by the way, I got to just correct you for a second. We know some predominant people, but really some predominant people know us.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
So I want to make it, because people,
right.
It doesn't matter who, like, we know Tiger Woods, but does Tiger Woods know you? Like, to me, it's important for us to realize that who really knows Chris Ross? Like, if I say Chris Ross, yeah, I know that dude. That's what we want from people.
Right.
I think that's an important point for people. You go on a podcast, you're trying to create a brand and all this. We need to get to the point where people know us, and not the vice versa. Cause it doesn't help you to really know someone.
Right.
And so, but I just thought I'd throw that out there. Anyway.
No, I like it. It's actually really, it's impactful for those to understand that we're bridging that gap for those who get known and get being seen and being talked about. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you mentioned this, I mean, is the effect you leave on others and the impact you leave on others is the purpose behind getting your message out there. Because it doesn't really matter to me about the name and who you know and who you don't know. What are they going to say about you when you're not there?
100%. Yeah. 100%. So going back to the book. Yeah. Like the Rocket Fuel book is just based on a law that I created. I found, I should say. I didn't create, I found it. Coming from a broken home, I don't remember any different. I don't remember my parents ever together. Dealing with, child support, custody battles, all that stuff you go through when the family splits up. And then you had step parents into the mix, all that stuff. And along with that, I had a lot of alcoholics, drug addicts, and people with anxiety, depression, on medication, and overdosing, and even suicide. Growing up around all of that, I realized that I got through all that somehow. And I became a person that is able to impact this planet somehow. And when I want something, Chris, you're kind of similar to me. When we want something, we get it. It's not because we're spoiled. It's not because it's handed to us, but we just don't give up. We're inexorable. I have my shirt today. It's my favorite word, inexorable. We're unstoppable and unyielding. And so what I realized is, how does that happen? Well, basically, if you go after something, and anything that comes your way that's designed or that seems like it's going to slow you down or stop you, you just store it in your tank instead of your trunk. Most people keep their stuff in their trunk. All this toxicity, discouragement, letdowns, all this stuff, they're storing it in their trunk, man. Figuratively, but really, literally. And if you've seen a hoopty back in the day, them big hoopties, and people used to put some shit in the trunk. I don't know what they put in the trunk. I don't ask questions, but they put some weight in the trunk, right? And that weight would push that car down on the tires and wear the tires down, slow the car down, even stop the car. That's what people are doing in their lives. I didn't do that for some reason. I, for some reason, figured this thing out. I'll just put it in my tank and I'll convert it and I'll use it to fuel myself. I'll use it to fuel my journeys. And so that's the Rocket Fuel law. Take everything that stops or slows you down, store it in your tank instead of your trunk, convert it to become unstoppable.
What would be some ways for those out there listening to this on how to take that from the trunk and actually putting it in their tank?
Well, first of all, you don't put shit in the trunk from the start, but if you have stuff in the trunk, just make the transition, decide. Everything's based on a decision. Human beings want things to be so complicated to implement them. Then they figure out that I can't implement, it's too complicated. Then they're like in this conundrum. All you got to do is keep things simple. You make a decision. I'm not storing anything in my trunk, and anything that's in my trunk is really fuel for me to use. And I'm gonna go use this fuel. Now, it's figurative, right? Because this is the way we understand things sometimes. Sometimes you need a picture, an image to really like understand a concept. So you just decide, bro. I hate to be so simple. Like I want to be complicated sometimes because maybe like man, I want to be like
It is
Tony
so
Robbins
simple.
and make things complicated so people come to my thing because, oh man, C-Roc, so he knows his stuff. It's so no, dude, it's simple. And by the way, me making it simple gets results, but it doesn't blow my brand up. It doesn't make me a big shot like some of the bigger speakers out there, but I don't give a shit about that. I want results for people.
Well, that actually ties into the last guest I had on, Steve Sims. It's like we talked about this a lot. Is like, listen, bro, I love that dude, and he actually came on to the show very early on when I very first started interviewing guests at season 3 of my show, and he was like, man, I knew that was going to happen with this episode because we went down a whole rabbit hole. But how well can I solve that problem that everyone is ignoring quickly and effectively to move on to the next problem and selling through others to get to other people? And yes, it doesn't really get a lot of headlines because we're very effective on what we do, but we're getting to the core and the root and the nucleus pretty quickly with someone's problem because it really is simple. I mean, it's very simplistic approach, but I think what also makes you effective, and just for the listeners out there, when you went through a lot of shit, we kind of know the areas of opportunity, and we've been here before, and we know how to quickly get to the core and the root. I mean, do you find that really easy when you're actually speaking, is actually understanding that type of energy and understanding their situation and being empathic and putting yourself in their shoes and being like, listen, bro, I've been there. I get it.
Yeah, I think for sure, 100%. It gives from the experience that you've had. But there's another thing is that knowing, like I just know things because I've not just experienced them, but I've made the effort that any areas I'm insecure in, I've leaned into and figured and like learned. Right. You know, people think that you have to have experience to accomplish things and know things, and that's not the case. Like, but by the way, if you only rely on experience to know things and accomplish things, it allows you to be under control by other people because they can limit your experience to things. They can make you forget things. And so I'm not okay with that. So I understand that, you know what, I can figure things out and learn things and experience things through also leaning into things and learning, studying things, and then also imagining. So like using my imagination to mock things up and then kind of like, I'm trying to think of an example here, like flying a plane. They make you have experience to fly a plane for other people's safety. It's not really for your own safety. Because if it was just about you, they'd let you fly the damn plane. But you can actually fly a plane without flying a plane before. If you studied enough how to do it, and then actually went through a visualization of flying the plane, you could fly a plane the first time. It's a fact. Most people don't believe that, and that's fine. But when you have experience and you're relying on experience, then you have issues with control. So the reason I say this is because when I go to speak with people, if I'm speaking on stage or if I'm experiencing anybody's issues that they're dealing with, one, I accept the fact that I'm different and I believe that I'm different. And then what I mean by that is I want to be in a situation where I'm looked at as an authority and I'm looked at as someone that's in control and that can help figure out the situation. And again, that starts with a decision. Like you don't really have to have coached people before. You don't have to have had experience before. If you make the decision that you're a person that controls things and can figure things out, then that you will be looked at like that energy will
right.
It's
recycles. Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, man, that's the way I approach it.
I like it. I like that a lot because it's very, well, it's impactful for those that are experiencing it through their lens and you're not forcing it onto them. Right. So here's what I do. Here's how I do it. But it doesn't really matter about your experience. And I agree with what you're saying there because I see a lot of people out there to portraying themselves as being the person to help someone, but they're overselling it.
Yeah. Well, here's another thing. I'm going out in October to this event called Think Billions. Shout out to 𝙈𝙬𝙨 and Alexa is throwing it. She's putting it together. Alexa and her team, Alexa 𝙈𝙬𝙨. I gotta be careful when I say Alexa because this machine goes off. You know this.
I was like,
I gotta whisper her name
because my shit's gonna go off. Yeah,
yeah. But I'm going out to this event, Think Billions, and I'm speaking there. But I'm not a billionaire, and I haven't built $1 billion business yet. However, I will. And however, I've studied multiple. Like I'm so confident, like an understanding of how you can build $1 billion business, and now I'm executing upon it. But it takes time, and also how a billionaire thinks, and also how a billionaire carries himself. Now, there's different types as well. There's some billionaires that I don't want to emulate and other ones that I do that I really respect the way they act, even though they made it, how they act to other people, how they treat other people. So I know this stuff. And as an example of this, I'm going out to this event. I'm speaking at this event. I don't feel insecure whatsoever because I've put in the work. I've put in the studying, and I'm on the journey to where I'm going with 100% certainty. So I forget what we were talking about, but I just felt like telling you that.
No, I love it. No, I love it. This is what happens when we speak. But you touched on one word there, and I want everyone to make sure that they go back to what he just said, and he dropped yet at the end of what he said. I'm not a billionaire yet.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't try to ask the universe for things that I don't have. I ask for the universe to bring me the opportunities that allow me to forge the skills to get there.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't chase things. Like everything that's always worked for me, it seems, is that when I stopped chasing them and I started doing the work on myself to pull it in. Like I want to create an attraction model. Like I want to be so irresistible that people want to do business with me. They want to be around me. They want to have me on their show. They just got to get more of C-Roc. Right. And that's the way I want to focus on myself. And that keeps my game on point. Like I got to make sure that I'm doing the study and putting the time in, respecting people like that. It just holds me to myself to a higher standard. And then people just come into me like that. It's this way instead of me going like, come on. So yeah.
Well, when you're doing it that way, when you're saying that you don't have it yet, or you're trying to be gung-ho and going after stuff and chasing things, attracting is you need to become the person that be sought out for that type of situation or whatever that might be for people. And I 100% agree with you. I stopped chasing things. I'm always going, but when I'm going after a target, I'm usually going after small little metrics to get me to the non-negotiables for myself to get to that type of status or whatever that might be on that type of role.
Yeah, look, dude, here's the thing, what I want to do. Like when we were born on this planet, right? We're kids and we are like so imaginative and we just don't know the difference. We're so I don't want to say stupid because it's not. We're so naive to really understand what we can and cannot do, and we just go.
I would say delusional.
Well, I don't know what it's delusional, really. I think that's the real way we should be. Right. I think we're delusional now based on our experience and all the things that have happened to us and all the people's inputs around us, which cages us in. As a matter of fact, I was listening to Pink Floyd the other day with my son. We were coming home from a late flight, driving 3 hours from the airport, and we were listening to Pink Floyd, The Wall, right? And I listened to that in college when I was high and I was smoking weed all the time. And then I thought it was such a cool song. It sounds so cool, but I never really thought of the words. And then I realized that, wait a minute, another brick in the wall. So every time somebody says something about you, discourages you, tries to shape what you're doing, says you're working too hard, you're obsessed, all these different things, all those things are is another brick in the wall if you allow it. And then eventually you build up this wall around you. So you're so introverted that you can't be creative. You can't accomplish anything. And so what I really want to focus on is I want to make sure that for myself and others is that no wall gets built around you. Like all those bricks you use to turn them into steps instead of a wall. Right.
Right. I like that because there's two different deciding factors to that. And a lot of people aren't aware of this. I always speak about is what is true and what is an illusion. You can't, it just goes into thinking and being. You can't do both at the same time. You can't think and be at the same time. You can either be into that moment, that present moment, or you have to think. But thinking is the only way to kind of like screw yourself up and projected stuff onto you. It's like a human aroused by the contradiction of nothing but nonsense. That's the only thing you'll seek and find. But being is a whole different type of way of looking at life. So then you can start understanding the difference between truth and illusion. And a lot of things that we understand as in our intuitive side, we can feel, we know what's right, but we're so fixated by all the, fear, famine, and all the shit around us. We're like, oh my God, maybe everyone else is telling me this is true. And that's not an illusion, but this is an illusion. And you're sitting around going, okay, stop being reactive. Are you being proactive with your life? I don't know if you've ever boxed before. I boxed growing up my whole life. And my granddad used to always tell me, like, listen, you should never be flat-footed or on your back of your heels. Never. So when you're actually in that stance, now you're in a think or flight. Now you're just reacting to everything around you. But when you finally take that step and going, okay, I'm going to go at stuff. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going after, but I'm not being defensive. I'm being offensive. right? And being aggressive and
Yep.
being aggressive of who you are as a person and understanding who you're trying to become as well. Do you find that difficult for those who have a hard time using their imagination of saying, okay, hey, this is how I can tap into something I never thought I would be able to tap into before?
Well, human beings won't experience anything, and they won't be anything and achieve anything and see anything and feel anything if they don't first imagine themselves to be that way and imagine their environment a certain way. Now, I will tell you about illusions, right? Illusions, and you're some people say you're delusional, and it only takes one person to agree with you to make it a reality. It's not real until you get one person to come into agreement with you. And then you share reality, and that's all that takes. And then multiple other people will do that. But like, here's an example. So like if we're standing on a hill, right? And I say, look at the top of that hill. And by the way, that this hill has a building on the top of it. I'm like, look at that airplane on the top of that hill. And two other people are like, what the fuck? That ain't no airplane. It's a building. What are you talking about? Right? I'm crazy. I'm delusional. But all I got to do is get one of those two people or another person to say, yeah, damn right, that's a plane. And then the other guys are like, well, shit, are we crazy? And they start wondering. Then they get into a little bit of confusion. And then you just got to get people convinced on. So I'm obviously being ridiculous here with like a building versus a plane and somebody. But at the end of the day, when you imagine something and you visualize something and you get one person to agree with you upon it, it becomes reality. Then it can really get out and spread. Most people give up on getting people to agree with them on something. Or they don't even imagine anyway, because they think, nah, there's no sense. Nobody's going to agree with me on that anyway. This is the way it is. And this is the way most people think. This is why people get stuck in the middle class thinking, average thinking, is because most people do that. Most people agree to it, and that becomes reality. When that's not that, the only reason it's reality is because people have agreed to it. Follow me?
No, I'm 100% following to you. My thing is, when you're looking at the creative side and tapped into your creativity side of you, then you're more confident within yourself to say, hey, I see something you don't see.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, having convincing one person, and now it's a reality. I mean, there's a lot of things that I've actually built, and obviously you built in your career. We're like, why the hell are you doing this? And what I see something that you don't see.
Yeah.
And being confident enough to go say, listen, I don't care if you don't see it, but why don't you see it? It's not the question. What are you seeing? You know what I mean? Through the lens that you're looking through life, what are you seeing? And then I'm going to start looking at it in a way of they're looking at it and say, okay, now I'm not convince you, but I'm going to pretty much debunk everything that you're seeing right now. And that's, I know it sounds very controversial, right? But it's not my job to explain it to the masses. It's my job to make sure that I can articulate that message to those who can grasp that.
Yes. And get rid of the people, once you talk to them about it, that aren't willing to be open-minded or see it. And they're going to continue, you just get rid of them out of your environment, because they're going to try to, most of the time you will eventually give in to their reality.
Yep. Right. How many people have done that to you over the years?
Shit. I don't know. I can count. I don't even want to count. I just, this is one of the success secrets that I have, is I'm very, very, very hyper sensitive to what's in my environment and who's in my environment. I get a mission, Chris, and I'd go towards that mission, and my thoughts, words, actions all go towards that mission. And if I do anything, like I have any actions or anything like comes, I just switch it, right? I'm either going towards something or away. But then also the environment thing, that's the biggest secret. The biggest secret is to make sure that in my environment, it is completely clean and going towards the direction I want to go. And if it's not, I don't get any emotions involved. I don't get anything, take things personal. I talk to someone about something. I'm going here, you support it, or it's fine if you don't. And we're just not going to, I'm just not going to hang out with you.
Right.
And so I've cleaned it out. And now I move so much faster, and there's no salmon swimming upstream. Right.
That's true. But you're not carrying around a lot of baggage, right? How often do you sit back and reflect on that type of exercise for a day of C-Roc? I mean, do you debunk a lot of things every single day for those of the listeners out there that try to control too much? I mean, I like to let the world come to me in the very first part of my day rather than me going after the world, because there's something else that I'm not missing, right? So, or maybe it could be tapped into my subconscious that I'm being reactive when I'm touching a phone or touching whatever type of technology. I mean, how often do you sit back and actually reflect on those?
Every single day.
Okay. Got it.
Every
So
single day I assess.
I want everybody to watch and
assess.
listen to what how quickly he answered that question. Every single day. It's every day. If you missed a couple of days, what do you think that would actually happen to you?
Well, so we look at, I think you and I talked about this before, maybe not, but I think like
Probably
we realize that at our age, like the window is shrinking to make impact. And so we have to move faster and faster as we get older instead of slower. Some people are like, I can't wait to get to retirement. I want to slow down, take it easy. And like, I feel like I got to move faster and faster. So I can't afford to have anything slowing me down. So if I miss 1 day, 2 days, like that gets in my mind thinking that, oh shoot, complacency can slip in. So for me, I assess every single day, and that gives me the ability to make adjustments, add to, take away, whatever I got to do very quickly without wasting time. If you wait a week to assess things, then if you are, assessing your environment and you wait a week to assess your environment, you could let some kind of rat or snake in that shouldn't be in there, and they can do some damage. And if it's you're not doing what you need to do, you're not focused, you're not doing the actions you need to do, whatever it is, you've wasted too much time. So for me, doing it daily, it doesn't take that long when I only do it. I do it daily. And 3 or 2, I don't even know what number 1, B, F. It allows me to stay on track more consistently and move faster.
Yeah, but for those out there, just however you want to put it into the bullet points, it's fine.
I got an assistant. My assistant Kim helps me with that stuff. She bullet points it for me. I can't keep track.
I send a lot of audio notes to my staff, right? And they put things into spreadsheets and they do whatever I need to do. And I kind of go with them. Like, I don't know whatever number I'm on, it's fine. So when you're looking at some of the things are a must for you to move to the next day or moving on to the next, I don't know, set of meetings. For the young entrepreneurs out there that maybe they are projecting out into the world that they have a lot going on, right? But we actually have a lot going on, a lot of different types of areas, right? And especially arenas. How hard is it for your staff or for people around you to keep up with all the things you have going on?
I think well, with that question, first of all, thrust is a must. You said, what's a must? Thrust is a must. You have to move fast.
Right.
Because I'm a rocket fuel guy. So I came up with the same thrust is a must. And it's kind of sexual connotation. So women get excited sometimes when they hear it. Some of them make a face and then others. Right. But anyway, it gets attention. Right?
Thrusting.
It gets attention. Yeah. I'm not talking like that. They're thinking
like
that.
Your mind went there, not mine.
Exactly. So anyway, no, I have with everything, I have like one assistant that works and keeps things in control with me with everything that I do. And then every other company has its own people.
Right.
So, and I set the vision, and then we make sure that people are in the team align with that vision. And if they don't, then we move on. Like we're very anti-personal about it. We're on a mission. We're trying to win a ball game in everything that we do. We're trying for greatness, like not good, not average, not settling. We want greatness. And, we're on this kick right now, Chris, in my businesses where everything we're talking about going out of 2022 into 2023 is, look, we're going for great. And then once we hit great, we're going to go to phenomenal. And once we hit phenomenal, we're going to go to the next word, whatever the next word is. And we're not going to stop, but we're not going to settle. And I'm not going to have any acceptance of things other than that. And anybody that does will self-select out. Well, they'll shine like a bright light. We'll make sure that we understand that that person's got to go after we try to get them back on track. But we're just not, I'm just not living my life like that when I wake up in the morning and having to think about, this person's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, or this person's causing trouble. Like I used to deal with that stuff, but I'm not doing it anymore. Even if they produce, it doesn't matter.
That's like cutting a cancer out before it even starts, right? I mean, they're going to feel uncomfortable in meetings when they're not over. Or taking
vitamins and eating right and exercise and doing all the things that doesn't allow cancer to even come in the place.
Love it.
Very, very proactive.
You mentioned second book coming up, right? So what is this book all about? How far are you with it?
Well, it's basically about the 10 principles to becoming unstoppable. So I've come up with a formula that I use personally. And I've also witnessed, and the reason I came up with it is I witnessed it from other people, and I compiled these 10 principles to become unstoppable, to live in the life of your dreams. And that's what it's about. I think I'm going to title it Inexorable, just because my favorite word. It's different. But how far I have, I've done several talks on it. So pretty much I I could probably pop it together in an hour based on transcripts of talks that I've done, and then send it over to, my guy to clean it up. So probably won't take long, really. I just need to put time on the calendar to wrap it up.
Right. That's cool, man. Congrats. I know that how much, success you got with Rocket Fuel, and it came out of nowhere, right? Where people think it came out of nowhere, but if you're dialed into the right frequency and stations, then this guy was actually going to be doing it. So that's one of the things. Like, you're just not dialed into my frequency, man. I mean, it's the reason why I don't know you yet. Blooprinted, right? We have coming up on different types of podcasting agencies, and you kind of like helping people get, I guess, placed in different types of shows, and the shows of the people, their audience, that need to hear their messages, and which I do love. And obviously we can talk about that with the WINJECT and whatnot. Going into the type of tech space for you, how much was that a leap?
Well, not much, because everything I do aligns with the mission, right? So tech is just, I had to have somebody that knows how to build tech and knows how to design UI, UX, and all that. I just run everything else the same way, like culture, business, people building. But, I have 3 tech companies now that are, one's launched, which is Blooprinted, and the other ones are not far behind, but all of them lead to unstoppable people. So, and then when the podcast agency comes up, like, people don't realize with podcasts, it's not about going on a show and being interviewed and then the audience, and that's all that matters. It's so much more than that. Podcast hosts, like I'm doing this podcast agency, and I created a blueprint in Blooprinted, which is a platform of step-by-step processes, SOPs to achieve an outcome, not courses, but step-by-step processes. I created a blueprint in there on how to start a podcast, because podcasting, Chris, has changed my life. It has done everything for me, from relationship building to opportunities to confidence to credibility to content, you name it. Like, there's so much that comes from podcasting. Podcast hosts are the most connected people on the planet. And a lot of people just get hung up on how much audience is it, a big show, how many episodes.
It's irrelevant.
It's all BS. Like, you got to focus on, I'm going to build a relationship with the host. His network is going to become my network. My network is going to become his network. The content that you can take from it, you can create reels, stories, blogs. You can write a book based on your podcast that you've gone on. The credibility and confidence that comes from it is ridiculous. And so it's changed my life. So now my duty is to give back to people. So I started a company to help people do the same thing I did with the same formula. And so the tech stuff does that. The podcast agency does that. Everything is in line with creating unstoppable people.
Right. Well, I love how everything does align. And this is the reason why I'm asking you the questions the way that I'm asking the questions. I'm going with, it's a very simplistic formula that you have. And it ties into the very first thing you said. And like, listen, I would love to have this sound is more complex than it does, but it's really not. I mean, it's just simple. This is my formula. This is how I go attack it. I deploy my resources, or the people, my network around those resources that I need to obtain to be able to allow me to equip myself, my staff, businesses, and other people around me, for them to look at me as not just the authority. I am the authority, but just because of my reach through the resources and how well I'm able to solve a problem. That's what it sounds like to me when I'm asking these questions in a very simplistic way of you answering and articulating that, of going, listen, this is how I get shit done. This is the way I go. And I love the coin of the blueprint. And it's like, I'm giving you a blueprint. This is a blueprint. Yeah. How you go about achieving that is on you, not really me. Right. So
no, it is, because I take responsibility, Chris.
Okay.
Like, one of the things with our platform is
you tied into my next part of the question. Go ahead.
Yeah. We want to take responsibility for getting results for our clients, instead of like, a lot of, this is why course content and course platforms are dead. Like, I'm seriously leaning into this message, because I was trying to tiptoe around it a little bit for the longest time, because I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings that do courses and have course platforms. But at the end of the day, man, when there's a 3% completion rate for course content, that's ridiculous. And if there's marketers that are good marketing, sell courses, but they're not people aren't completing their courses, it's ridiculous. At the end of the day, you're putting a course out there to get results. So for me, I'm taking responsibility as the platform, the co-founder, Blooprinted, and I'm getting my creators that are putting blueprints in the system to take responsibility for getting results for their clients.
Right. There we go. Bing.
Because if they're not getting results, then what the hell are you doing? And so,
that ties into my, obviously my core message and what I've done, obviously, with the education space, and me going into the education space, going into the more of an online world, coming from trade schools. There's, accreditations, and keeping your accreditations, you have to have a 97% passing rate or pass and review rate, completion ratio. Success ratio is what we called it. And this is the reason why you and I tick on so many different levels when it comes to this. And you shouldn't pity pat around those emotions. Like, listen, you're literally having people sign up for a course on platforms that no longer relevant in today's marketplace. And you're wondering why you have all these strikes on FTC right now, because you're over marketing and under delivering on something you're trying to help somebody with, and you're helping no one.
Yeah. Well, and it's different with accreditation courses or licensing courses. I mean, people have to take those.
Right.
And so, I'm not necessarily, definitely not referring to those. I'm referring to the ones that, these thought leaders and these coaches and all that. I see it as a major issue with that, and I'm just doing something about it. Now, what I got to do, I got to tell you, I've probably done over 300 demos of this software, Blooprinted, and we're getting creators to come in. But it is the crazy. This is just me and you talking, right? And people can listen too. But like, this is the craziest thing. As soon as if I don't set the paradigm shift immediately about, hey, this isn't a course platform, people will automatically put these glasses on, and they see through these glasses that this is a course platform, and they don't hear anything I say. Right. So what I've done recently is really like putting a stake in the ground that this is not a course platform. We're against courses in a way because they don't work. and this is the new way to learn and to get shit done. And so then I start with that to really shift their focus. Like, well, okay, wait a minute. How's this not a course platform? No. This is a marketplace with step-by-step processes, like a blueprint, like an ingredients to make a meal. Like you don't do a course to make a meal, or you don't do a course to build a house. You follow a blueprint.
Right.
Right. So, yeah.
No, I love this. I mean, very similar when I was looking at WINJECT. People thought I was building a podcasting or a media company. Like, listen, I'm teaching people how to increase awareness to their brand, and I'm teaching people how to increase engagement and engage buyers or engage people will do anything you ask them to do. Right. So when you're going into courses, I mean, why would someone build a course? What is the outcome? Right. So it's not about course. Like, okay, do you have a place where your people can feel like they're being listened to? If you have, just go into a podcaster for a second, just make an example. If I was a podcaster and if I want to start a podcast and go, hey, I have a podcast, how many people are going to listen to my podcast? Not that many people, depending on who I'm having on or what conversations I'm having. Are there any kind of touch points in there for looking and spiking engagement? How are there other ways that I can open up feedback forms and actually understanding what they're going through in life? But a lot of people don't understand how simplistic it is of just starting up a podcast and going, hey, what do you want me to talk about? And they feel listened to. Now they feel heard, and giving them a way to communicate with the podcasting host or podcast host, then bam, you're good to go.
Yep.
And you're off and running.
Feedback. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd much rather have 10,000 engaged listeners than having 2 million.
100%. 100%.
So, I mean, I know that we live and die by that same type of core value. It was like, listen, okay, what can I do for you? He's not asking the question just because he wants to ask the question. What can I do to help you? He's going to provide you the blueprint and the systems available that are going to allow you to equip you to step into that and hold you accountable. And that's why I loved when you went in with I didn't even have to ask the question. You knew exactly where I was going. Okay. Who holds them accountable? You know what I mean? So
yep.
I love that.
Yeah. You got to have accountability. There's another cool feature in Blooprinted where, they can schedule their blueprint, and actually the tasks that are associated with the blueprint of how to do that thing get pulled right into their calendar for them automatically. Okay. So it's like a coach actually going to your calendar and filling out your calendar for you of what you need to do to accomplish a goal. Right. And so that's ridiculous. And I think commitment and accountability with that is crucial.
Where can they find? Is it an app? Yeah.
It's a platform online. It's blooprinted.com. It's BLOOprinted.com. I believe it's in the
the bottom of the, we'll put all in the show notes and stuff. I mean, because I see a lot of people out there that are going to, and I don't want to name drop the couple companies, and I actually like these people, but their systems are no longer relevant. I don't want to talk shit, but they have systems that are prolonging the inevitable for someone to be successful, if that makes sense. Like, you don't have to go through it this way. That was the old way of doing things. You can do things completely different if it ties into your core values, right? I mean, a lot of people, they're trying to make money and over marketing and under delivering on their message, and they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, I mean, that's not sustainable.
No.
That's
And the reason why I say the podcasting side of, you said podcasting changed your life. Well, the podcasting allowed you to do is flesh out your message and get it really pinpoint on how well you're able to polarize that message out.
Yeah. I mean, shoot, like doing it as many times as I've gone on like 400 shows, over 400 shows in the last 3 years. Not just my own show, which I've done recorded over 300, but 400 other shows. So like it allows me now, if somebody said, hey, can you come on my show today? Like, what do you mean today? Like, yeah, in an hour. Yeah, no problem. Before, there's no way. I'd be like, what the hell am I going to talk about? Oh my gosh. Like, or if somebody said, hey, I have a speaking event tomorrow. Can you jump? You know, we need spot fill. Yeah, no problem. I can go on stage and it's not even a question. So the confidence, the credibility that's come with it is ridiculous. So yeah, it's allowed me to formulate the message. And by the way, when you first start podcasting, nobody's listening to you. So you can mess up. You could test different things out. It's the same thing with social media. If you're going to go on a live or do a story on social media, you start a clubhouse room. If you wanted to start a clubhouse room and nobody knows who you are, nobody's going to come in that room anyway. So, and even if 10 people show up, like those 10 people aren't going to dictate your future. So, yeah, I agree 100%.
It's not going to hurt you at all. I mean, it's all about, you know, those moments on how well you are of being able to strengthen that muscle. I mean, people would ask me in my lifetimes, and I guess you would call it sales. And I'm like, I never was in sales my whole life. They didn't even call it sales until I started my first business. I was in admissions. I was in education, right? And they're like, you're a great salesperson. I'm like, I've never sold a fucking thing to anybody. So like, but it's like, what are some questions that you ask people? I'm like, I go with the freaking conversation.
Right.
Like, so what are you trying to accomplish? Like my favorite question of all time to ask someone is like, what in your life are you trying to accomplish? And you feel like you just can't seem to get there. And that usually cuts through all the monotonous bullshit and it forces them to think.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. And here's what we do. We use 3 questions. We asked about the past, the present, the future by doing this. Well, you know, and this is my 15-minute calls I get on too. Like I do 15-minute Zoom calls all day connecting with people. That's my thing. Right. Like besides my meetings with my team, I'm on 15-minute Zoom calls, either demo and Blooprinted or just an intro call with someone. And my technique, it's conversational, but there's a method behind the madness. I'll say, hey, so what are you most proud of? Like all the accomplishments that you've accomplished, what are you most proud of? You hear about their past and you hear what they value, right? Then oh, that's great. Acknowledge them. And in the middle of the question is, okay, so what are you doing right now that's got you excited? Now I know what they're into right now.
Right.
And then the final question is, listen, so finally, before I, share some things about myself, like what's the vision for the future? What do you have your sights set on? What would have to happen in the future? What would happen in the future you knew right now you accomplished that would light you up? Now that's a Richie Dolan thing. He taught me that part. Shout out to Rich. But what would light you up? That tells you the future and what they have. First of all, if they're future focused, if they're focused on the future at all and goal oriented. And if they're not, then you got to work with them or not work with them. You got to get out of get them out of here. But the second thing is it tells you what they're focused on. And then when you go to share your side of things and what's about you and what you're working on, you can speak into those 3 things. So you have an unfair advantage in a way. But you're doing it for the win of all. You're not just doing it, you're not trying to take advantage of it.
I wouldn't say you're under fair advantage. You're getting them to express what they really want to articulate and not have to be so monotoned and so programmed to answer it in certain ways. It's when you're reframing something and then paraphrasing, going, okay, well, tell me about the future. And if you're basically not tricking anyone, it's no smoke and mirror here. Like how much can they visualize the future from their, I guess, perception and reality?
Well, it's causing creating futures for yourself and others. That's what that's simply what it's doing is gathering information or gathering data to really create something. If we're talking and I'm just like nonchalant with you and just whatever comes our way or whatever comes up, that doesn't work because it's not intentional. If you're intentional about causing and creating a future for someone and helping them achieve something or together achieving something, you need data. And the data you need is to know what they value, which is the past, what they're excited about right now that they're working on right now that's taking up their time, and what their focus of for the future and their vision is.
Yep.
That's all you need.
Well, I think we just end the show on that. To be honest with you, this is probably one of my shorter episodes, but it's one of the most impactful because we went through your story pretty quickly, went through exactly all the things you have going on, and we went through a very simplistic way of being able to accomplish those and giving yourself rocket fuel to being able to do it. I love today's episode because it was funny because normally you have to get through a bunch of frame of questions to get to the core and the root and the nucleus of someone. But I think also it kind of is a testament of obviously our relationship. We don't cut through. We don't. There's no bullshit.
Yeah, not only that, I'm efficient. Like I said, I do 15-minute. This is like 3 15-minute calls today.
Right.
I do 15-minute Zoom calls and I cram it in, man. Very intentional.
Right, dude. I was actually on a corporate meeting with the 2 trade schools that I sold a while back. And they were like, how long is your discovery calls? I'm like 5-7 minutes. And they were like, what do you mean 5 to 7 minutes? Well, 5 to 7 minutes is me. I can actually understand who they are and where I'm going to send them. And they're like, well, how? I'm like, dude, I've been doing this my whole life, man. Yeah. I don't need to have a long call. What are we going to talk about? I don't care who's sold second.
No, long calls are for people that don't know what they're doing and they're not intentional. That's it.
Right.
And they waste so much time doing that. And you know, so now I'm down, man. But I appreciate you having me on, Chris. If there's anything I can do for you or anybody you're listening, anybody wants to connect with me, man, just Instagram's probably the best route. But yeah, I appreciate you having me, bro.
Man, it's been pleasure's been all mine, man. Seriously. Guys, make sure you'll find all the show notes and all the stuff. My team will put it up there. But if you can find me or find Mike anywhere, just reach out to him. This guy is always open to co-create, always open to an open ear. That's one thing I do love about him, and it's just who he is as a person. He's sometimes to get to a certain spot or status, I guess you would call it, people get, oh, I don't want people to message me directly. Mike's always open, and that's not his assistants reaching out. And if it is, his assistant will tell you, I will get this to Mike, I promise you, and he will respond. So, but Mike, again, appreciate you, man. Peace out. Much love, guys. Hey, go kill it. Just keep being great. Peace.